Hey everyone, so UFC 314 Volkanovski versus Lopes just finished. I'm going to give you guys some future matchups for both the winners and losers of this card. So without wasting too much time, let's jump into it. And to start with, we're going to matchmake for Nikita Krylov, the loser of the opening fight in the main card. He didn't really look that great, granted. He got finished very, very early in the fight, so he didn't really have much time to show what he was working on. So he's probably going to move down to around number 9 ranked, which gives me the opponent Johnny Walker. I think Nikita Krylov, he's not a huge name. Like, a lot of people coming into his fight with Reyes were sort of more interested in where Reyes was going than where Krylov was. He's very close to retirement. I think he's getting quite up there in age, so I think he deserves a fight that is gonna sell for one, and Johnny Walker sells regardless of who you put him up against, and one that he could possibly win. And I could see that with Johnny Walker. I could see him being able to finish Walker more specifically. And overall, I just think this fight will be very, very fun. They're both guys who kind of come out the gate trying to finish. They'll throw crazy stuff, kicks, punches. And I just think this fight will be very, very fun. So yeah, run up Nikita Krylov versus Johnny Walker. And now moving on to the winner of that fight, we have Dominick Reyes, who looked really, really good this fight. I picture him jumping up the rankings decently high, maybe even above Khalil Roundtree at rank 7. But yeah, he's riding a 3-fight win streak. All 3 of them were in the first round with a KO. And this one was probably his best one yet. His Anthony Smith one, there were like questions about how much Smith wanted to be there. This one was undoubtable. Very good finish on a Krylov who looked very prepared. So I see big things for his next matchup. And for that reason, I want to give him Jan Blachowicz. It's a bit of a high jump. Jan Blachowicz ranked number 5 at the moment, but after his performance in UFC London, I think he does need to fight down, and I think this matchup would be pretty iconic. They're both legends of the division. They've been around for a very, very long time, and they do have history. So for those that don't know, Reyes lost to John Jones, where he technically, in my opinion, won. But, you know, judges didn't see it that way. He lost that fight. And then his next fight after that was against Jan Blachowicz. Jan Blachowicz finished him pretty badly in the second round. And then he kind of went on a losing streak after that against people like Yair, who, looking back now, are not bad losses at all. But, yeah. So I think it would be cool to see a rematch, see if Dominick Reyes can put away the boogeyman that sort of caused the downfall in his career, and see if he can maybe go on another run for the belt. And I could 100% see Jan Blachowicz also having a chance of winning this fight, which makes it interesting to me. Yeah, I think this is probably the better matchup. People are saying Rakic, and I'm not going to argue with that. That is also a really fun matchup. I just want to see Jan Blachowicz versus Reyes part 2 and see if Reyes has sort of overcome the sort of downfall he had after losing to Jones. So yeah, that's my next matchup. On to the next fight. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we're going to start with the loser of that fight, Bryce Mitchell. He didn't look amazing this fight. First round he was actually finding some success on the feet, but he did kind of get dominated in his sort of prominent area of the grappling. He got submitted in the second round. He is ranked number 13th at the moment. So I think after this fight he might get bumped out of the top 15, if not get put at the very bottom, because Dan Ige is currently 15th and he won his fight, so he'll probably jump up a bit. Mitchell will either be outside the 15 or be just gripping on at that 15th spot. So I think he should definitely fight outside the 15, and I have a perfect matchup in Doo Ho Choi. They have a bit of history. Doo Ho Choi had a very, very good win at 310 over Nate Landwehr. He made it look very easy, which is kind of difficult to do with someone like Nate Landwehr. And Nate Landwehr had no answer for Choi's just constant pressure. Usually Landwehr's the one running people down, striking them, and sort of causing them to wilt and get knocked out. Choi flipped the script and knocked out Landwehr in the 3rd round, I think it was, after just completely battering him for 2 other rounds. After that, I think he deserves a spot in the top 15. He was sort of edging outside the top 15. I think a fight against Bryce Mitchell, where they had a bit of Twitter beef, would be a perfect fight. Maybe put this as the co-main on a fight night or something. But yeah, I think this would be the next good matchup for Bryce. I can't see him fighting really anyone else inside the top 15, and I think this fight will introduce a new prospect in Doo Ho Choi. So yeah, I say we run this one up and move on to the winner of this fight. And now the winner of that fight, Silva. He looked really, really good this fight. In the first round he was getting beat on the feet, but then in the second he kind of locked in, started throwing these heavy hitters on the feet, and then he ended up submitting Bryce Mitchell, beating him at his own game. That's going to be very memorable when it comes to his next fight. So I think he's going to be fighting up a little bit. He'll probably be ranked close to number 12-ish by the time the new rankings come out. So I see a perfect opponent 4 ranks above him, number 8 Lerone Murphy. I think this is going to be what the Emmett fight was supposed to be, with Lerone Murphy being a volume striker, just trying to out-volume his opponent, and having a threat across the octagon who can finish the fight with one punch. Emmett looked a bit slow. He didn't really push the pace as much as I'd like. He was kind of grappling a bit more, and it wasn't really good grappling. So Murphy kind of won that one in a very non-dominant fashion. It wasn't the most fun fight to watch. I think Gene Silva will change that. This will have to be a fight where Murphy has to get on the front foot, has to push the pace. It will be the real test for Murphy, because Gene Silva, when he gets you up against the cage, he's not going to try and grapple you or lift you up and slam you. He's going to try and knock your head off, and I think this is what Murphy needs to sort of solidify himself within the top 5. And Gene Silva needs a fight that will sort of bump him up towards that top 10 spot, and I think Murphy's the guy to do it. So I say run that up. That could be a main event of a fight night. That could be a co-main event of a really stacked fight night where they go to an arena. It could even be the opening fight of a pay-per-view card, I reckon. But yeah, run this one up next, I think, for Gene Silva, and moving on to the next fight on the card. And the loser of the next fight was Yair Rodriguez, and listen, I'm going to skip this one and you'll see why later, but we're going to move straight on to Patricio Pitbull. I think Pitbull didn't look great that fight. He kind of got dominated by Rodriguez for all 3 rounds. I think all judges gave it 30-27, with Pitbull just kind of getting startled. He kind of got caught in the spotlights and just didn't throw as much as I'd like. He didn't really make a convincing argument for any of the rounds to be scored in his favour. So for that reason, I think he does need to fight lower level comp. I don't say kick him outside of the top 15, because he was a very dominant champ at Bellator. What I think we should do is give him sort of opponent near the bottom 15, and I think a perfect opponent for prior to him on this card, Dan Ige. Dan Ige won in a sort of controversial stoppage. I think he would have won the fight regardless. He was actually up 2-0 on the scorecards, which I thought was 1-1, but either way, he was probably going to win that fight regardless of the early stoppage, but the early stoppage did put sort of a damper on the whole fight. And I think a good win over Pitbull will be able to boost him up in those rankings. He'll probably be ranked number like 14 or 13 when the new rankings come out. And I think that would be a perfect spot for Pitbull to sort of fight for his spot in the top 15. If you can't do that, you should get kicked out. Sort of similar to Kai Asakura. Kai's just barely gripping into that top 15 after moving over and fighting Pantoja for the belt and losing it pretty badly. Same situation here. He lost pretty badly to Yair Rodriguez. I think he needs to battle lower level comp to sort of build himself back up to those sort of championship level fights. So yeah, I'd say run this up. This would be a pretty fun fight. They're both very powerful people. Dan Ige known for not being able to be finished. Pitbull known for his knockout power. It will be interesting to see how this one plays out. So yeah, next fight. Next up, the co-main event. The loser of which was Michael Chandler. He is on a 3-fight losing streak now, 2 of which came by finishes. He first lost to Dustin, got submitted by Dustin. Then he lost to Charles in a pretty one-way decision loss. And then he also lost to Paddy Pimblett. Lost all 3 rounds in my opinion. Maybe won the first, but then got finished in the 3rd with ground and pound. Definitely probably going to move down to around number 9, if not number 10. Or maybe even number 8. I don't know with Chandler, because the company kind of loves him. So I'd say his next fight should be someone just outside the 10, if not a prospect, but I like this idea a little bit more, so hear me out. Renato Moicano, number 10th ranked currently, and I think he does deserve an opponent further up, just based on sort of him saving 311. Stepping up 1 day notice, losing to Islam. I don't think you should punish him for that and make him fight low. I think he should fight up. He might be fighting Beneil Dariush, but I've also heard rumours that Dariush is fighting Mauricio Arafi instead. So I do want to see him fight Dariush, but if Dariush is going to fight Ruffy, I say give him Chandler. I think that would be a very entertaining fight, and the thing with Chandler is the thing that sells his fights the most are usually his dance partners. Like a big draw for Paddy Pimblett versus Chandler were the fact that both of these fighters were very exciting, and I just can't see as many sales or many viewership for a sort of Ferez-Ziam Chandler matchup. Not saying that that couldn't be the next one, I'd enjoy that, but just from a casual perspective, it doesn't really sell as much as a Moicano versus Chandler. They both kind of have their own sort of identities, and they do sort of resonate with the UFC fan base a bit more. So I like that idea. It would be good because it will get Renato Moicano sort of further up in those rankings, maybe give him a number 8th spot. and then he could start fighting the top 5 again on another run for the title. Yeah, so I say that one. If not Moicano, give him either Grant Dawson or a Fares Ziam, and let those people sort of enter the top 15. Even Ignacio Bahamondes, but just really anyone below around 10 to 15, if not lower, for Chandler next. And the winner of that fight, Paddy Pimblett. And this one might take me a while because there is a bit of a situation at the higher levels of lightweight. Sort of the top 5 is a bit log-jammed at the moment. So let's break it down. Champion Islam Makhachev. He does take a while to turn around. That's his only problem. So I can't see him fighting anyone in the top 5 anytime soon. Speaking of, Arman Sarukian, 311, he pulled out of his fight, and afterwards Dana said that he isn't going to get an instant sort of fight against Islam again. He needs to definitely fight one more fight before he can fight for the belt. I think they're most likely going to do Justin Gaethje for that one. Justin Gaethje coming off a pretty good win over Fiziev, and it just makes sense for that one to be a number 1 contender fight. Below that, number 2 ranked Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira, I can't see him fighting Paddy Pimblett yet. In fact, I actually do think the rumours that he is fighting Ilya are true, and a broadcasting team did leak that for 320 Guadalajara, so I can kind of see that happening. Number 4 ranked Max Holloway, we'll get to this. Number 5 ranked Dustin Poirier. A lot of people are saying this is the next matchup for Paddy, and I do actually really like this matchup rankings and style-wise, and even story-wise a bit. Icon of the sport taking on another dangerous prospect, kind of like what we saw with Benoit Saint-Denis. But the problem with Poirier is it's his last fight in the UFC next. Apparently it's going to be at Lafayette, Louisiana, and apparently that's going to be 318, although I'm not sure about that last part. So I think if it is his last fight, and he is sort of been talking up the fact that he'll only fight a legend on his last fight, I think most realistically we're going to see a Max Holloway Dustin Poirier fight for the BMF title. Even though it's not a real belt, it is something that can kind of like add a bit to that sort of story. It's going to be a trilogy as well. It just kind of makes sense from a story set point of view, and a sort of rankings wise, and even just like the fact that the BMF is involved, which, oh my god, I hate the BMF, but it makes sense here. So with all that out the way, who do we have left? I think Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, number 6 ranked, he did jump up very high against Mateusz Gamrot, and I think he does sort of need to prove himself to get into that top 5. And I think Paddy's a very good test for him. Paddy Pimblett will probably be around rank 7. He might even jump up past Hooker for a number 6 ranked. But I think he does need to challenge sort of an outside of the top 5 guy, and I think Hooker's the perfect guy to do it. There is, I think, a bit of beef, sort of like little squabbles with each other. But I think this would be a very fun matchup. See if Paddy's striking really is all that against someone who's incredibly dangerous in the striking department. So yeah, and this could definitely be another co-main, or even headline a fight night, a really good fight night, I'd say, maybe one in like New Zealand or something. Somewhere where they travel. But yeah, I say run this one up next, and we're going to move on to the main event. And now the main event, and we'll start with the loser of the main event, Diego Lopes. Very hard fought battle with Volk, just couldn't do enough to win it. And you may have noticed that I didn't pair Yair up with anyone when I got to him, and that's because I think Diego Lopes should take on Yair Rodriguez next. Rankings wise, makes sense. Diego Lopes is 3rd, probably might get moved down to 4th after this. Yair's 5th, might get moved up to 4th again, I don't know. But I think this is a perfect matchup to make. The press conference also very much helped with the sort of beef and confrontation they had then. If you look into it, the story of why that happened is like one that goes back a very, very long time ago. There is animosity between the camps, and I think this could be a really, really fun fight to make. In addition to this, it could potentially happen at UFC 320 Guadalajara, which would make a really good co-main event for a Mexican event. That's only like 6 months turnaround. That's very manageable for both fighters. And they both lost to Volk, and that's a good storyline as well. Yair a little worse, but still, both of them lost to Volk. Could be a number 1 contender fight to get their rematches, respectively, after Volk runs through Movzar, unless, you know, a new contender comes up. But I could see this being a number 1 contender bout as a co-main event at 320 if Charles Ilya doesn't end up happening. Could be a 3rd fight down on the card, maybe. But yeah, I think this is the obvious next move for Lopes to get him back into that title picture. And moving on to the winner, Alexander Volkanovski. He did a very good job this fight. He looked amazing. Like, he looked like prime Volk again, and I was so happy to see him like get that belt back. He's probably the featherweight GOAT now. You can't really argue that with what he's done in the division and now becoming a 2-time featherweight champion. You could always argue, well, Ilya knocked him out, but we'll see. We'll see the run he goes on. And speaking of the run he goes on, I think his first title defense has to be against Movsar Evloev. Let's not beat around the bush. Movsar's undefeated in the UFC. His last 4 opponents were absolute dogs. He went through, who was his last win? Aljamain Sterling, bantamweight GOAT, until Sean O'Malley knocked him out, but also someone who just reigned over the bantamweight division. Before that, he beat Arnold Allen, who is a really, really good fighter. He's always been in that top 5, sort of pushing out these prospects that aren't good enough. And at a time, it was seen that he was going to be the next champ if he could get through Holloway, who he couldn't. Before that, he beat Diego Lopes, I think it was, or Dan Ige, one of the two. He beat both of them very convincingly. His fight style's not the most entertaining, hence why it's taken him this long to get this sort of title matchup. But you can't really deny him anymore. He's done enough to deserve the title matchup, but I think even Volk said he's down for it. So yeah, this is the obvious first defense. Do I think Volk can do this? I think so. I think he probably will win this one. The thing with Volk is you kind of need to finish him to get him out of a fight. If you can't finish him, he's going to be there all 5 rounds, constantly pushing on you and like applying the pressure. We saw this with all 3 Max fights. We saw this most recently with Lopes, who in the later rounds just had no answer for Volk's volume. And I think the same thing will happen with Movsar. But I don't know, there could be a crazy upset. What happens after that for the featherweight belt? I don't know. But for now, I think Volkanovski should defend against Movsar, potentially at 320 as well, maybe 6-month turnaround. If not, maybe a bit later, maybe even a bit earlier. But regardless, those were my future matchups for UFC 314, Volkanovski versus Lopes. On screen right now is just a summary of every matchup I want to see in the future. Comment below your matchups. Do you like mine? Do you think mine are dumb? You leave below in the comments what you want each fighter to have as their next opponent. And yeah, really fun card this one. We get a bit of a break and then we're back at it with what was Hill Roundtree is now Ian Gary versus Carlos Prates, which is going to be a banger. But yeah, see you guys then. Bye bye.